Have you ever noticed how, in almost every corner of the world, garlic is the ultimate delete button for the supernatural? Whether it's a blood-sucking vampire from the west or a hopping corpse from the east, the solution is always the same. Shove a handful of garlic in its face, and you're safe. But how did a humble kitchen bulb achieve such a global reputation as a demon-slaying tool? Was it just a coincidence? Or has garlic been a biological fortress, from the very beginning, a plant so chemically aggressive that it repels every creature on Earth, except for us? To understand the myth, we have to look at garlic's ancestors. Belonging to the genus Allium, these little grasses lived a brutal life on the semi-arid steppes of Central Asia. Competition for resources was fierce. While other plants spent months slowly photosynthesizing, garlic learned a high-stakes survival trick: the storage strategy. It funneled every bit of energy into its base, the bulb. This allowed garlic to preload its growth. The moment spring arrived, it didn't wait for the sun. It used its stored reserves to explode out of the ground, seizing the sunlight before its neighbors even woke up. This is why plants like leeks and chives can be harvested repeatedly and still bounce back. They have a biological power bank underground. But having a concentrated vault of nutrients is a dangerous game. It's an open invitation for every animal and pathogen in the ecosystem. To protect its treasure, garlic didn't develop thorns or speed. Instead, it invested heavily in its chemical defense tree, perfecting a weapon so potent it would eventually rewrite human history. And that weapon is a two-part biological bomb. To protect its hoard of nutrients, garlic didn't develop thorns or speed. Instead, it built a chemical trap. Inside every garlic cell, there are two substances kept strictly apart: a lion and the enzyme alliinase. Think of them like a two-part epoxy or a dual-component superglue. As long as the cell is intact, they remain peaceful neighbors. But the moment an animal takes a bite crunch, the cell wall shatters, the liquids mix, and a rapid-fire chemical reaction occurs. The result is a volatile compound known as allicin. This is garlic's primary weapon. If chili peppers are the masters of pure heat, allicin is a rogue cult in the world of biology. It's a multi-layered sensory attack. First, it triggers the TRPV1 protein on our mucous membranes, creating that familiar burning sensation. But it doesn't stop there. It also binds to TRPA1, a protein responsible for sensing environmental irritants, which brings on that sharp, stinging, tear-inducing punch to the nose. But allicin's true lethality lies in its penetration power. It enters the bloodstream almost instantly. If you don't believe it, try rubbing crushed garlic on the soles of your feet. Within 30 minutes, you'll actually taste it in your mouth. For most herbivores in the wild, this is a death sentence. Once allicin enters their system, it can trigger hemolysis, the rupturing of red blood cells leading to anemia, vomiting, or even death. It's an evolutionary masterstroke, a weapon that smells like a warning and tastes like a threat. Most animals learn to stay far away, leaving the garlic to thrive across the Eurasian steppes. Little did the garlic know, this exact chemical warfare would soon attract the most dangerous predator of all, a creature that didn't fear the burn, but embraced it. But how did this chemical warfare fail against us? The answer lies in our greatest invention: fire. At high temperatures, the volatile allicin, that vicious compound, designed to kill, breaks down almost instantly. Instead of a toxic burn, it releases a mysterious, savory aroma. For humans, this wasn't just a spice, it was a game changer. It masked the smell of gamey meat and added a depth of flavor so addictive we call it wok hay today. By simply cooking it, we turned a plant's defense system into its greatest attraction. Around 5,000 years ago, this attraction reached a fever pitch in ancient Egypt. But back then, garlic wasn't just in the kitchen. It was in the underworld. Archaeologists have found clay garlic models in tombs from the Naqada period, miniature clay sculptures placed beside the dead. Why? Because the same chemicals that sting your eyes are incredibly effective at killing bacteria. The ancients saw this anti-rot power and believed garlic could preserve the soul itself, making it a symbol of immortality. This sacred status meant garlic was a luxury, a superfood reserved for the elite and the gods. In the legend of Osiris, the god of the dead, his wife Isis reportedly used garlic as a biological plug to restore his life force. This divine endorsement, combined with the fact that garlic naturally repels evil things like scorpions and snakes, created a powerful cultural belief. Garlic was a shield of yang, energy, capable of shattering darkness. From the tombs of the pharaohs to the pockets of the workers building the pyramids, garlic had officially become humanity's first holy weapon. From the temples of Egypt, the obsession with garlic spread like wildfire to Greece and Rome. But as it traveled, its reputation took some bizarre turns. The ancient Greeks, for instance, were convinced that garlic was a performance enhancer, the world's first legal doping. They fed massive amounts of garlic to Olympic athletes, and even to roosters before cockfights, believing it provided a surge of combat energy. To the Greeks, garlic wasn't just food, it was a battle buff. However, this power-up came with a socially awkward side effect: garlic breath. While allicin breaks down in the pan, its metabolic byproducts like allyl methyl sulfide enter the bloodstream and are exhaled through the lungs for hours. The women of Athens turned this biological nuisance into a weapon. During the festival of Skira, they would feast on raw garlic, creating a breath shield so potent their husbands had no choice but to keep their distance. It was, quite literally, the world's most organic form of birth control. But the Romans took it even further. Roman soldiers marched across Europe fueled by garlic, believing it granted them virility and strength. It was during this era that garlic's life-giving reputation merged with its protective myth. Because it killed bacteria and repelled pests like snakes and scorpions, people began to believe it could shatter invisible evils too. By the time the Roman Empire reached its peak, garlic was no longer just a luxury for the elite. It was a commoner's treasure, a medicine, and a shield of yang energy that would eventually evolve into the vampire-slaying legend we know today. But as garlic conquered the human world, it paid a heavy price in the currency of evolution: its independence. Most plants in the wild reproduce through seeds, spreading their genetic legacy across the winds, or through the gut of an animal. But look at a modern garlic bulb. It almost never produces seeds. Instead, it relies entirely on its cloves, the individual segments of the bulb, to grow a new plant. In biological terms, this is a form of self-castration. By focusing all its energy on creating large, flavorful cloves to please human palates, garlic lost its ability to reproduce naturally in the wild. If humans stopped planting garlic tomorrow, the species would likely go extinct within a few generations. It has traded its biological freedom for our protection. We provide the soil, the water, and the defense against weeds, and in exchange, garlic has become a genetic clone of itself, repeated billions of times over in farms across the globe. This evolutionary bargain is what made garlic a global superstar. We didn't just adopt it, we integrated it into our very DNA of civilization. From the Silk Road to the spice ships of the Mediterranean, garlic traveled wherever humans went. It was no longer just a wild grass from the steppes. It had become a universal currency of flavor. But as it moved from the physical world into the realm of myths, its chemical potency began to take on a new, darker meaning, one that would eventually give birth to the most famous monster in history. But why, of all things, does garlic kill vampires? The legend isn't just a fairy tale, it's rooted in biology. In the 18th century, a blood disorder called porphyria was often mistaken for vampirism. Patients were pale, sensitive to light, and most importantly, allergic to certain chemicals. One of those chemicals was allicin. Because allicin triggers the breakdown of red blood cells, eating garlic would cause a porphyria sufferer intense pain, making them recoil in terror. To an uneducated observer, this looked like a monster fearing a holy plant. Combined with its natural ability to repel bloodsuckers like mosquitoes, ticks, and leeches, garlic became the ultimate symbol of yang energy, the light that shatters the dark. It wasn't just a spice anymore, it was a spiritual shield. From the rugged Central Asian steppes to the silver screens of Hollywood, this little grass has spent 480 million years perfecting its defense. It traded its biological freedom to become a clone in our gardens, but in doing so, it achieved a different kind of immortality. Today, when you smell that sharp, stinging aroma in your kitchen, remember, you aren't just smelling a seasoning. You are smelling a 480 million year old chemical bomb that has survived empires, fed pharaohs, and fueled Olympic gods. Garlic is a master of adaptation, proving that sometimes the best way to survive a dangerous world is to become so useful that your greatest predator becomes your most loyal protector.